Hello again, Gooners. It's the Loose Cannon back again, number 80 something. Didn't check, probably, I don't know. Or it might even be in the 90s now. Who knows? I mean, time is moving on. And it's been a while since I last saw you. And yeah, yet another victory against Reading this time. But as well as that, as well as discussing what's going on now, we've got a bit of the past, a blast from the past, courtesy of Steve Stammers and his official biography. So I'll be reading from that, if you can stay awake that long. And in the meantime, I'm going to talk about the Reading victory, of course, and plus that's the reason why I'm waving my pencil in the air. I've actually been taking notes. Oh yes, been taking notes, and well, what am I going to talk about? A bit of transfer news. Well, I have to say, at this point, this transfer news is probably as bogus as it gets. It comes from sources like the Daily Mirror, from the Daily Star, and obviously very good for their ratings, me promoting them. But here we go. The first bit of transfer news: £70 million. Yes, that's how much we could spend. Yes, all that could be yours. If we spend £70 million, we could land the likes of Mario Goetze from Dortmund, Robert Lewandowski, also from Dortmund, very good player. I'd love him to sign for us. 25 million he'll cost, apparently. Chelsea and Manchester United also interested, which is exactly why I don't think we'll get him. But you never know, with a ski on the end of his name, he might well be the kind of player that Arsene Wenger wants to bring to the Emirates Stadium. Because we're losing one ski, right? We're going to lose one ski in Fabianski, or are we not, ski? Because he's playing well ski, isn't he, lately, ski? Well, anyway, Lewandowski, he could be on the way for 25 million, according to the Mirror. Mario Goetze as well, that does seem a bit far-fetched. We'll get one or the other, or possibly none. Knowing our luck, none. Lars Bender is another player linked with us, not related to Bentner. A very similar surname. That's about where it begins and ends, the similarity, apart from they're both strikers. He's 23, currently plays for Leverkusen. Not too sure about any of those. We've been linked with Goetze for a very long time, as we have with Lewandowski, and nothing's happened yet. Doesn't mean it won't. Sometimes we have to be linked with a player about 10 years before we sign him. Unless he's about 18, then it's a different story. Another player we've been linked with that I've not noticed before, Maxime Gonalans from Lyon, £8.5 million. That's in the same story, believe it or not, even though it was this £70 million shortlist with those three players, Goetze, Bender and Lewandowski. Gonalans also made the news, but it was right down the bottom, and maybe that's the kind of signing that we would possibly bring to the club. The Daily Mirror have been very busy taking stories from the Sunday People as well, linking us with a £10 million move for Jonathan Williams of Crystal Palace, who's won a couple of caps for Wales recently. He's a midfielder, 19 years of age. Of course, we do need another midfielder. We've been saying this for quite a while, but since the recent injury to Abu Diaby, who's now going to be out for 9 months, which is why I've always said he looks particularly fragile in the middle of midfield. Well, he's not going to be looking fragile now, is he? He's not going to be on the mend yet again, but when he mends, he breaks down again, and we've seen 17 games on average per season from Diaby since he's been at the club. That's according to Sky Sports. I find it hard to believe he's played that many games on average. It feels like a lot less to me, but yeah, he's been involved in 17 games, probably played like 10 seconds on some occasions. Okay, I'm exaggerating, but I think if you add up his minutes on the pitch, you'd be surprised how few games he's played. It's not all his fault. Of course, he suffered an awful injury, and that's because Premier League referees don't protect our players enough. And talking to Sky Sports, they're also linking us with a player by the name of Luis Pedro Cavanda of Lazio. He's a right back who's currently having a contractual dispute with his club, and this right back could be on the way in. Obviously, the Bakary Sagna situation is that he could be leaving. So in that case, it would make sense to sign a right back. So perhaps we will. Perhaps we won't. Another thing that interested me was the news about Jovetic. Guido Di Domenico, I'll say his name again, I've just done it. He's an agent, and he reckons he's got the green light, Jovetic, for a switch to our club. I've remained very doubtful that this agent has got news about the player. I think he's just getting involved and trying to spin a towel, if you like. But there were no tales to be spun. No one. Certainly, a lot of spinning going on from the likes of Jovino. Let's see, tenuous link time. There was a lot of spinning going on at the weekend when Jovino managed to plunder himself a goal. The Predator actually scored. I don't know how many goals he's got now. Must be, well, still single figures, but that's what you get when you play a winger who doesn't like to cross as a striker. He's a bit like Hleb. I think that's why I've not really taken to Jovino. I prefer him to Hleb, but look what happened to Hleb after he left Arsenal. Downhill from that point on. Although he got his move to Barcelona, it looked like he was going to go to whichever club gave him the most ice cream. But Hleb moved on, and then it's been a downward spiral ever since. And I would suspect the same for Jovino. I'm still not convinced with him yet. He certainly played quite well. As Arsenal latest rated him, gave him an 8 out of 10. I think I'd probably have to give him an 8 because he got 2 assists and 1 goal, so he can't really beat that, can he? I'd give him a 7 though, just to be just for the sake of it, really. Fabianski, another player I've been very dismissive about. I'd give him a 7. I thought he played quite well, and he wasn't at fault for the goal. But what really got me is how everyone is on Nacho Monreal's back for conceding, as if it was his fault. The cross whipped in by McAnuff from the left wing was excellent, and all it would take was a touch to convert, and that's exactly what happened. Obviously, Monreal couldn't be expected to defend that. Really, if we're going to start really raking up the dirt, we should be looking at Sagna, because Sagna let the cross come in. But then again, sometimes you have to give credit to the attackers, and I think, I'm not saying Reading are the best team in the world, which is why we shouldn't get carried away by this victory. But nonetheless, Sagna let McAnuff get the cross in. The cross was an excellent cross, right over the heads of our centre-backs, who both played well, both got 7s on Arsenal latest, and I would agree with that. And well, it was just a touch at the far post, and you can't be in 2 places at once. I mean, I think it was a bit much to ask Monreal to defend an in-swinging ball like that just about went over his head. It was virtually a perfect cross, so credit to McAnuff and the goal scorer. And looking at the midfield, the only other one I would disagree with their ratings, they gave pretty much everyone a 7, except Cazorla, who got a 9. He was excellent. What a great goal he scored. Side footer, of course, set up by Jovino. And my man Giroud scored, but he only got a 7. It's probably about right. He didn't affect the game that much. One player I thought again gets higher ratings than he deserves is Rosicky. He got a 7. I'd probably give him a 6. I don't think he did that much. If you really watch him, watch how much he runs. He flatters to deceive, I feel, our Czech, who looks smaller than he actually is. So kind of flatters to deceive in that way as well, you might say. Anyway, yeah, I wasn't overly. I thought it was a good performance, very good performance, but I'm not getting carried away by it. One thing I have been getting carried away by is the fact that my predictions are coming true. Do you remember? I'm just going to grab a piece of paper just to prove it. My predictions were that we would get 3 points against Reading, which we did. I said we'd get 1 against Swansea, so we're actually 2 points up on what I predicted. So now my 70-point prediction has now become 72 for us. When we start looking at the likes of Spurs, it's panned out far worse than I thought it would for Spurs, and I already had them finishing below us, but now I've got them finishing 4 points below us come the end of the season on 68, because although I predicted they'd lose against Liverpool correctly, I thought they'd beat Fulham. Of course they lost that, but then again, I thought they'd get only a point at Swansea, and they got 3, so they're only 1 down actually. So I said they'd get 69, now I'm saying 68. Then look at Chelsea. I said they would lose to Man U, and they managed a point there, so they were 1 up. Then they beat West Ham as predicted, but lost to Southampton, so they're 2 points. They've got 2 points less than predicted. So now I've got them finishing on 72 points, the same as us, so it could come down to goal difference, 3rd place, if that actually happens. Then we've got Liverpool, who I predicted would give us a real run for our money and end up on the same points total. I'm not so sure now, even though they won today against Aston Villa, which I predicted, but I predicted they'd beat Spurs, but I didn't think they'd lose to Southampton away, And that's exactly what happened. So they're 3 points down on what I predicted. So I've got them finishing on 67 points behind Spurs. So that's the way it stands at the moment. I'm going to keep updating you on that if anybody's interested. And if you're not, well, tough. Go somewhere else. I'm being rude, aren't I? But that's my prerogative. I don't want to sound like Bobby Brown, but it is. Right, okay, I'm not going to sound like Bobby Brown. I might even sound like Herbert Chapman now. Oh, no, I won't, because I might... Well, I might do. It depends if there's any text to be quoted. But here we go. This is The Visionary, a chapter called The Visionary, and it's where Chapman's luck changes. He's now taken over at Huddersfield. Chapman had another stroke of luck the following month. This is February. So, the following month being March, which is now. Langley quit Huddersfield, and Chapman took over as secretary manager. Sounds interesting. At last, Chapman had the stage he craved, put his ideas into action and make his mark as a manager. He spent little time dithering about what to do at his new club, and he signed England international Clem Stevenson from Aston Villa and an 18-year-old by the name of George Brown. In his first season, Huddersfield won the first major trophy in their history. They beat Preston North End 1-0 at Stamford Bridge to win the FA Cup. Their cup run came as a welcome relief from the more demanding world of the league, in which Huddersfield had spent most of the season involved in a battle against relegation. They finished the 1921-22 season in 14th, and Chapman decided to spend the close season adding to the squad. I wonder if Arsene Wenger will do the same. Hint, hint. This is Chapman, he was able to start introducing his favourite tactics. These were based on a strong, resolute defence and fast counter-attacking. He liked short, accurate passing, and had a great belief in the influence of wingers. Now that he was in total control, he could ensure that this pattern of play was extended to all teams connected with the club, including the reserves and the third team. All of them would play in the same way, as the Chapman philosophy became the philosophy of Huddersfield Town. That meant that if anyone was needed from the backup teams who were playing well enough to be promoted to the first team, they would immediately know what was required. Yeah, you could say the same about the next gen team. We were the bridesmaids again, finishing fourth in that tournament. I watched the game against Chelsea. He was very unlucky to lose that 4-3. Who scored? I think it was Akpom. Yeah, he scored a couple of tap-ins, but right place, right time, impressive. Anyway, Chapman also introduced a scouting system that was arguably the best organised in the country. The scouts had one remit: find players who would suit Huddersfield and their strategy. There was cash available, a bit like our club, to Chapman after the FA Cup success, and he used this to bring in new players like goalkeeper Ted Taylor and strikers Charlie Wilson and George Cook. Huddersfield were transformed, a fact reflected in the 1922-23 season in the toughest test of all, the First Division, when they finished third. So they finished third, 22-23, and well, that's all we've got time for right now. We've probably got time for more, but I've decided to call it a day and shout away until the next time. Up the Gooners!